Hi, I'm Mitra Sorrells in the PhocusWire studio, and today I'm joined by Kayak co-founder and CEO Steve Hafner. Welcome, thanks for joining us, coming right off the stage. So I was looking back last year, you joined me in the studio as well, and one of the things you said as I was asking about the coming year, you said, that when you think about your existing product, you always hope it will suck a little bit less in the next year. So does Kayak suck a little bit less than it did a year ago?
Yeah, I think so. I think we still have plenty of rooms for opportunity, and we're pushing hard on a lot of that stuff. But yeah, we made progress during the course of the year.
Okay.
Shame on us, we didn't.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's good to hear. So let's talk a little bit more about SkyScanner's recent move. I know you talked about that a bit, and I heard you say that Kayak has no intentions to go in that direction. But I'm curious, doesn't it potentially give a little bit better user experience for everything to be done in the one platform in the app?
Yeah, well, you can do that today on Kayak. It's just we're not the merchant of record and we don't provide the customer service. So if you're really looking for a frictionless booking, you can do that already on Kayak. You've been able to do that for multiple years. Plus, we have our sister brands in Booking and in Priceline you go to that have flight booking platforms now that we can plug seamlessly into.
And so you don't necessarily think that customer service piece is a critical piece that needs to be added then, as far as the Kayak purchase?
Everybody provides customer service today, but Kayak doesn't.
Right.
And I think that's our point of differentiation. And I think if someone makes a booking somewhere, which they can do through our app very seamlessly, then they have their choice of customer service options.
So let's talk a little bit more about your app. What innovations need to happen there? More and more everything's happening on mobile. So what needs to happen to make that a better user experience, would you say?
So the app is very slick, very fast. It's not cluttered with ads like the desktop version. For us, what we're trying to innovate on is really the personalization. So recognizing who you are and what you've done before you came to the app and what you're likely to do next. Adding a payment and wallet capability, and then building a cross-brand loyalty program. So all that stuff is coming this year.
Okay. So you mentioned, actually, you touched on that with the cross-brand loyalty with OpenTable. So If I'm hearing you correctly, it's going to branch out into other booking brands?
That's exactly right. That's what we're working on.
Okay. All right. So we will look for that. So now I know you've had the integration, the partnership with Route Happy, and I believe it's just today that you're displaying that content, correct, in Kayak. Talk to me a little bit about that and what that brings to the experience.
Yeah, so one of the things we've always tried to do at Kayak is simplicity versus information overload, right? And what Route Happy brings to us is a lot of great content about the particular service standards of an airline seat or a flight segment. And now what we're trying to figure out is when's the right time to present that to the consumer. Is it when they're doing a quick search, or is it when we've seen that they're engaged with 3 or 4 results? Or perhaps it's only on the mouse over, it's not when you're just looking at the flat result screen.
And so, what do you see developing there? Is that something that you'll be testing and looking at different options?
Yeah, in general, anytime we can get structured data, then we can test in front of, last month we had over 500 million people use Kayak and our other meta brands. So, we'll try to find the right engagement points to show that information to the consumer, the right packaging, so that we don't overwhelm them, but we do help them make a better decision.
And is that content visible across all the brands?
It is.
It is, okay. So let's talk a bit more about, and one other thing related to that, I saw that you're also going to be adding some more features to that, videos, 360-degree seat views, that sort of thing?
That's right.
Interesting. The Kayak for Business announced just last month. Why now? Why was now the right time to get into that space?
Well, Kayak now has over 1,000 employees, so we were looking for a business travel solution that we wanted to use, and we couldn't find one out there. And what our folks liked using is our own product. So we said, what is our consumer product missing that we need as a corporate customer? And that was expense policy, management approval for violations of that policy, and then really robust reporting. So we went out and built that. And now we decided that it's sufficiently good enough that not only are our colleagues at OpenTable using it, but we made it available to the world.
And so that's getting ready to actually launch and become fully available. How are you marketing that? What's the business development piece there? Yeah,
the good news about Kayak is we have so many users, we don't really have to market it. We can just put it in front of our user base right now. Today, we're just taking a wait list. And we got over 1,000 companies on the wait list, but we're not offering customer service, so we want to make sure that when we onboard them, it's with the appropriate expectations for that company.
But there will be that concierge piece added potentially, is that right?
Yeah, so most companies already have a corporate travel solution, so this is supposed to complement that. But for those who want to switch completely off of Concur or whatever they're using and use Kayak for Business, we've partnered with other third parties to provide customer service, because Kayak's not going to get into that business.
Okay. And again, is that available globally?
Kayak for Business is only launched in North America,
okay.
So we'll be announcing other regions soon. And then the concierge level service is still being rolled out.
Okay. Another new product that I saw you did in the last month or so is the Kayak Social Guides. Talk to me about the reason and the strategy behind that.
It's funny. We have a lot of offices. We have over 30 offices, and our employees travel constantly. And one of the most requested items they would have when they go to new offices, where do I stay and what should I do? So each of our office managers created a guide that was available on our intranet and now is available on Kayak for Business for Kayak users, is where to stay and what to do. And we thought, God, now that we've made this platform, why don't we just make it available to the world and see if it gets any engagement? And it's getting engagement without any promotion. I'm surprised you found it.
Yeah, so it's something, I'm one of those that makes a whole list and notes when I go somewhere, and then I have my friends asking me for it. So, it did strike me as interesting. And I know it's still very early, but you're seeing interest there? And it's that whole social inspiration piece?
Yeah, so it's two prongs, right? So we've got companies doing it themselves for visitors to their own offices. And then we've got a little bit of social influencer that who are creating lists. And we learned this from OpenTable, which is our sister brand. So we have like Neil Patrick's Guide to Best Restaurants. Okay. Well, we can have Neil Patrick Harris write one for things to do in Copenhagen as well. And that's kind of what we're working on.
Okay. Talk to me a little bit more, because that was something else that I recall you had talked about last year, was that personalization piece. And you talked about needing to get better at observing what users are clicking on and then surface those relevant results. What more needs to be done in that space?
A lot, although I think we solved probably 75% of the problem. So now so many people use us that we can actually get very smart about predicting what they're likely to click on. And we have our flights, for example, sorted into various buckets in terms of what we think the cheapest flights, quickest flights, best flights. And it's the best flights module where we do a lot of the personalization. Okay. But also on the left hand of the search bar, where in our filter area, we have all your most recently clicked filters just right there. So if you always pick Nonstop and United, we can apply those filters by default. Okay. Yeah. I'm curious,
how do you continue to attract new users and younger generations? Just very anecdotally, as I talk to my daughter and some of her friends, they're more likely to want to just use Google Flights. They don't necessarily think of Kayak first. What are your thoughts there? How do you get them?
It begins and ends with the product. So the product's got to be better than Google Flights or SkyScanner or any of these other players in the space. And by better, I mean better result set, but also while you're on your journey, it's got to have a differentiated experience. And that's now at Kayak where we're spending most of our time. Well, not most of our time. 70% of the time is on the core experience, Meta. Another 30% is on rethinking the business model and the approach. And that's where we need to be. The reality is, comparing prices from hundreds of travel sites is not a particularly viral or innovative idea anymore. So we need to get to the next thing. And that's what we're working on.
As well as some brand marketing, I guess, correct? And getting the name in front of those.
Brand marketing, when you don't have a new message, is, I think, a bad investment. So Kayak hasn't been big on brand marketing for a couple of years now.
Okay. So let's just shifting gears just slightly. So there is something called the CEO Action Pledge for Diversity and Inclusion. It's been around a few years. There's about 800 CEOs worldwide that have signed on as a commitment to advancing diversity and inclusion. Booking Holdings is not one that has signed on yet. I'm wondering your thoughts there. Is that something that you think is important or that you see?
Diversity and inclusion is really important across all of our brands, not just at the corporate level, but more particularly for Kayak and OpenTable. And it's something that we have been working on for many years. I think we, compared to our tech peers, perform very well on that. I don't think necessarily signing a pledge on a third-party site is an important thing when we think we've got our handle on it internally. So I'm much more interested in what our own employees think than I am about seeking public approval of what we're doing.
And what about one of the comments that was made at the breakfast that was held yesterday, I think by Richard Harris, was that really it all starts with being very conscious about your recruiting and making sure you're getting a really broad pool there. I mean, I'm curious, your thoughts there and how you do that potentially.
Sure. So look, the reason diversity and inclusion is so important is because as a management team and as an employee base, you want to eliminate blind spots so you make better decision making. And if everyone looks the same and thinks the same, because really what you're looking for is diversity of perspective. So you want a diversity of perspective, and then the inclusion part means that someone who has an insight or a difference of opinion feels comfortable voicing it, right, so that you can take that input and make a better decision. The reason we look at identities like gender and background and ethnicity, et cetera, is as a proxy for that diversity of perspectives. And back to your original question, which is the recruiting side. So we make very sure that we're not recruiting in all the traditional places where perhaps we started, that okay, we have as wide a funnel of getting candidates in to make sure that we're getting that diversity of perspective.
Okay. All right, so before we wrap up, I need to ask, if I see you again next year and if we're sitting here again, what might we be talking about? I know you already touched on the fact that you're broadening out that connection with the other brands and the rewards and things. And what are the other priorities?
Yeah, I think Kayak next year will be even more different than what it was from the start of this past year. And it'll be different in very tangible ways. So all the improvements that we made this year are in things that you feel, but you can't point to. And I think next year, with the launch of premium accommodations and helping you while you're on your trip, the loyalty program, tighter integration with the other brands, you'll actually be able to point to stuff that we can talk about.
Okay. All right. I'll be sure to make a note of that. Thank you so much, Steve, for joining us. Thanks so much.